Hi, Dad. Welcome back to another episode of Dave and Andy's Honest About Life. How are you?
I'm doing well, Andy. Just listening to a lot of stuff going on in the backyard. Spring is a wonderful time for me. I have a lot of things going on that remind me of the past, and spring is just a renewal, and I love it. I love the green grass and the green trees that start to bud out, and it's just my favorite time of the year.
I was going to ask you what if it is in fact your favorite season of the year. Um, that's good to hear. Spring is especially early spring because you feel like you have all of spring ahead of you. You have all of summer and all of fall. So yeah,
It's a renewal. Yeah, everything is new and fresh, and even the bees that are out there, I just love it. One of the things that my grandfather was a beekeeper, and he had dozens of hives, I believe. It was just a lot of beehives, and honeybees were very important. They are very important. They germinate. I mean, then germinate. What do? They fertilize,
pollinate.
pollinate. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you
Like
for being there for me, buddy.
that.
They pollinate all the plants, and people get upset when you kill dandelions, because dandelions are one of the things that honeybees really love. And but dandelions in the yard, the neighbors don't like it when they put weed killer on their yard, and you don't. You have a bunch uh, of dandelions that go to seed real quickly, and those things spread fast. So anyhow, but I just love this time of the year, and I love when my grandfather would have fresh honey from bees that just loved all the wild grasses and stuff that we had up in Big Marine Lake was where Grandpa had all of his hives.
I do remember that up at Big Marine, at least the trailing end of that, where there were just a handful of hives still.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right about dandelions. Those are some of the earliest blooming flowers that honeybees and other insects that need flowers, and and all the good that comes from them. The dandelions are the ones that they go to early, and so with
yeah, you
seed.
got to keep those around. And I see fields that aren't yards for people, but they're just fields of yellow, and it's just so pretty to see. It reminds me of the scene in Wizard of Oz when they're going
Yeah,
through the poppies, I think. But it just, I love that when you see that, because that is really great for all the honeybees that are out there.
it is, and we really need to figure that out. We need to figure out how to, protect them. And I think there's been quite an awareness campaign, brought together to remind people the importance of pollinators and honeybees and all that. And so that's a good thing. And there's so much that you and I could talk about in terms of the environment, in terms of what we should be paying attention to, and where we should put our efforts to support wildlife. And you think about some of the things that are completely out of our control, like
Yep.
I shouldn't say it's completely out of our control, because if we really cared enough, I suppose we could get involved. But like the slashing and the burning of the rainforest and all of that. I mean, it's so far away we don't think about it, but it all matters, right?
Yeah,
It should.
it does. And I love that. There is so much in the environment that we can change, and I think it's important for each and every one of us to get involved and to change those things in the environment that we can change. You know how I feel about climate change and global warming, and I think that's outside of, at least it's my opinion, it's outside of our reach of being able to change anything, because humans don't occupy that great a space on this planet. And I just think we're too small a contribution to really make a change as far as global warming and climate change go. But as far as the other things that involve our environment and climate are two different things. And you and I used to go fishing we probably talked about this before, but fishing every fall. We'd go fishing up on Lake of the Woods and on the Boundary Water Canoe area, and it was so much fun. But yet we saw changes year after year where there were less fish and less pine trees, and that's because of and, acid rain was a big part of that. And acid rain is something we can change and we can do something about it. And that's huge. Sulfur dioxide turns into sulfuric acid when mixed with water. So that's how we get acid rain. It's sulfur dioxide that's coming out of steel plants mainly. And then it mixes with water from rain and it becomes sulfuric acid and it just destroys things. So, and those are things we can change. We can change the amount of pollutants that we're putting into the atmosphere. And I'm just never been one. Carbon in my mind is not a pollutant. It's a necessity of life. If we didn't have carbon in the atmosphere, we wouldn't be here. So, I just don't I don't see it as a pollutant. And
I can appreciate that. You, you also, I think you've talked a little bit about, when the cooling cycle is going to begin.
Yeah.
These cycles happen, whether they're 50 or 100 years or longer. But would you remind me, when do you think, you estimate that's going to happen again? Where it starts
Well, the cycle, yeah, that's a very good question. And this is another interesting thing that people don't realize, that we're in an ice age. Right now, we're in an ice age. We never get out of an ice age. It just has varying amounts of strength, I guess. But we're in the warm part of an ice age. And that started, I can't remember the name, I think it was the Wisconsin Ice Age, I believe. But it started about 13,000 years ago. And we were still in it, but we're in the warm part of that cycle. And now there are scientists that believe that we're going to be entering the cool part of that. So it gets to 14,000 years and it starts to go down the other side. And that's just a normal cycle. And it relates a lot to the sun, the energy of the sun, the output of the sun. All those things have cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were in a Maunder minimum of sun activity. The longest time, sunspots were rare. And now it's starting to pick up. So we're getting into that part of the solar cycle that will be probably a launching board for getting into that cooler trend of our ice age.
And so, that will trap some of that water, because obviously, what folks are talking about now, especially those that live on the coast and near the shore, is that risk of flooding. So if it stands to reason then is if this cooling happens, that water that is currently creeping up to some of their basements, et cetera, that water would be trapped in glaciers and the deep snowfall, right? Am I thinking about that right? With the water?
Yeah, you are. There's still a lot of controversy as to, does the water level rise when more ice is involved, or does it go down? You take a glass of ice water, and when that ice melts, did the level of the water go down? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I believe it does.
Yeah.
So ice takes up more space.
Right.
And even though it floats to a certain extent, when you see an iceberg, you see a very small part of it. The rest is underwater.
Right.
But it's an interesting part of this planet. How the water, there's conservation of water. Where does it go? It goes into different forms, but it's always there. It's one of those things in our life that it'll be there. It's just in a different form, and it may be in a different location. Like we go through droughts, horrible droughts that last years, and then we get into the other part of the cycle where it reverses itself, and we get tons of water, tons of rainfall. And a good example of that is what's going on in the Southwest, and California, Colorado River. All those things can be managed by humans and should be, so that we can kind of spread that water into the places that really need it. And, we do have control over that to a certain extent.
Well, water, to your point, is just so very important to everyone. Obviously we wish that everyone had equal access to it. So it's always going to be front and center of the conversation about how important it is to our life and how we can we could save it, how we can take advantage of it, et cetera. So
Keep it clean, yeah.
keep it clean. Yeah. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you getting into some of the weeds a little bit with the science behind it. And I always love to have those conversations with you, Dad. So thank you for, as always, sharing your perspectives on that. So until next time,
Until next time.
take care. Dad.
Thank you, buddy. I love you, pal.
Love you. Bye now.
Yeah.